Flaming Lips are an American psych rock band from Oklahoma. They were formed in 1983 and are still going. They've had a fair turnover of members. Wayne Coyle is their frontman, who took over that role fairly quickly when his brother Mark Coyle left after about the first year, and they have released 18 studio albums thus far. Hi, my name is Dan, and this is a review of the album Zaireeka. I don't know if that's pronounced right, by the Flaming Lips, which was released in 1997 and was their 8th studio album, and it's my first listen to this album. It's not my first encounter with the Flaming Lips. In fact, I have a copy of You See Me Battles the Pink Robots, which I have listened to a few times. So this is a technically unusual album in that it was released on 4 CDs, which are meant to be played simultaneously. So as they're all stereo, this makes it an octophonic album. This is quite a severe technical challenge. I'm not even sure that I have 4 things that can play CDs. However, I don't have it on CDs. As with almost all of the albums that I'm reviewing, I'm streaming it, which makes it even more of a technical challenge. I didn't have enough devices to do this, and I didn't have enough hands to set them off together. So my brother came and helped me, and we did manage to achieve it mostly. The tracks weren't perfectly in sync always. However, I would say that it is designed with these problems in mind, and that absolute synchronization isn't absolutely necessary to be able to listen to it and get the idea, or have a good listening experience. And in fact, some of the information that I've seen says that they expect it to be slightly out of sync. And that every time you do it, then it's going to be a slightly different experience, which is an interesting thought. Also, because this is how it's meant to be, I can't do that for the clips at the start and the end of the album. So you're going to get bits of clips from CD4, where the kind of the focal point of the track is in there, and one where it isn't, so you get some kind of impression of what some of the background stuff. But there's no way I can give you any kind of parity to this experience of octophonic. So I did manage to achieve, as I say, a listen like that. I've also listened to a mix down, I think, of it, all 4 tracks, and I've listened to CD4 in isolation. So it's a little bit confusing. Right, let's get into some musical description, and I'll talk about the different experiences there. So often the focal elements here are singing and acoustic guitar, neither of which I liked particularly. I was not taken with them. The singing's not great and the playing's not great, and it has this kind of amateur feel to it. Very specifically to the singing and the acoustic guitar playing. This amateur feel for this seems to be part of their sound. So I'm fairly sure that this is a deliberate approach. The songs, what are they about? Well, it's a bit weird. Ultimately, they're kind of fairly banal things. There's a monologue in the last track, which is Big Ol' Bug is the New Baby Now, which is, I saw that title for the track and couldn't work out what on earth it's on about. And when you hear the monologue, it does make sense, but I'm not going to explain it. Mostly the weird titles of the tracks are unexplained. Aside from this singing and guitar playing, the rest is kind of soundscape stuff with occasional rocky, oversaturated drums. And there's quite a lot of oversaturated makes me sound like I'm saying that's wrong. It's just drums that are pushed so much that it's distorting a bit, so which gives it this kind of roughness to it. It's generally experimental and psychedelic, and mildly interesting. Sometimes there's quite big noise and atmosphere and ornamental twiddles and a variety of instruments and sounds. the kind of full thing has got a lot going on at times, and it's quite psychedelic and experimental. And these elements I found quite interesting. So the stuff that isn't the singing and the guitar playing, interesting. The stuff that is the singing and the guitar playing, nah, not so keen on. Okay. So as I said, I listened to a single CD, CD4. The focal CD in the full thing switches about. So if you listen to one CD, you get effectively background bits, maybe 3/4 of the time, and then sometimes bits of singing, and then sometimes focal bits. Given that I don't like the singing and the guitar playing so much, in some ways, maybe this is a better um, experience than listen to all of it blended together, because you always get the singing. Then I think they're all of them are songs, maybe with the exception of one. So you get less of that, but you also get sections of silence and some very minimal stuff, and bits of reverb from the other CDs. It's pretty weird effect actually listening to just one of them. Listen to a mix down, so you get the full thing. The soundscapey bits are interesting again, but as I'm not a fan of the singing and the guitar, it's I found it bizarrely though, because I listened to the mix down after I'd listened to the Octophonic version. It sounds flat, and I think that's because it's meant to be this Octophonic thing. So the Octophonic listen, I would say it's not perfectly in sync all the time when I listen to it. Doesn't strongly depend on that sync, and in fact, there are bits where it's deliberately already out of sync between the tracks. It's a rush. It's weird. It's unusual. It's freaky. And I know I've just said three words that mean the same thing. It's a listening experience unlike almost anything that I've ever had. Um, there's usually a focal point, and that's usually one CD is the focal point. Sometimes there's bits going on in more than one track, more than one CD track that actually relate to each other. There was a point where we had two sets of drums going, and they were in time with each other, but I'm not sure if they were out of sync. So one was maybe a bar ahead or behind, or if it was just deliberate the way it was. This spatial separation is, I would say, really well designed. So the experience of doing it in Octophonic is uh, quite a good experience. I enjoyed that quite a lot, even more when he wasn't singing. Of course, it's a challenge to achieve, though, and it's very inaccessible technically. Somehow, though, I found it more rewarding, possibly because of the challenge. Unfortunately, this means that it's not an easy thing for people to just think, I'm going to listen to this album. Yeah, I just feel like it. Because you have to do setup. You have to have 4 machines. You have to have 8 speakers. You have to have some way of setting everything off all at once. So it becomes difficult. So my score that I've given is, well, it depends on which mode of listening you're listening to. So for the mix down, I would give it 6.2 out of 10. For a single CD, 6.4 out of 10. For the Octophonic, 7.7. And I would have given it an 8 plus mark if the singing and the guitar was better, because that's really the thing that lets it down. Or even omitted. It could have been great without these kind of song focuses. If it was just the soundscapey stuff, that could have been quite an interesting experience. So, very mixed feelings from me. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you think of this album. Oh, especially if you've managed to achieve the Octophonic experience. But if you haven't, if you've only ever listened to it in stereo, then what do you think? What are your feelings about this album? I'd love to know. Please leave me a comment. That's it from me for now.